Ain't nothing like the real thing, baby. Ain't nothing like the real thing. That's right, folks. There ain't nothing like the real thing of Spanish. How is everybody? All right, guys. So now we are going to enter into chapter 5. And let me just go ahead and preface this video by saying that in chapter 5, folks, the authors of this book have just inundated this chapter with several types of concepts, and it can be a little confusing if you don't kind of separate those concepts and learn them, or at least take your time to memorize these particular verbs and again these grammatical features. So I just kind of wanted to let you know that from up front, that again you need to especially take some time with this chapter because it is a little bit challenging. Okay, not impossible, just challenging. So again, what do? Let me tell you what we do. We embrace the challenge. Yes, we do. All right, so folks, in the new edition of the book on page 139, we are going to look at several new verbs, and these verbs are interesting because for most of them in the yo form, these verbs have a go. And again, these are just a list of certain verbs that they just have that particular feature. The rest of their forms, for the most part, are pretty regular. Remember, the endings that we've learned so far, your AR verb endings, your ER verb endings, your IR verb endings, for the most part, those same endings will apply to these verbs, but again, there are some little irregularities here and there. Again, things you just have to remember. So to start off with, let's go over these verbs and how they're pronounced. So on page 139, we've got the verbs hacer, to do or to make, oír, to hear, poner, to put, to place, salir, to leave, to go out, traer, to bring, and then the sixth verb on this page is ver, to see. So repeat with me, okay? Hacer, oír, poner, salir, traer, and ver. All right, so guys, you have heard these verbs and you know what their meanings are. Now commit the forms to memory as well as the meanings. So listen to me as I pronounce these forms of each of these verbs and repeat with me, okay? ¿Listos? Ready? Hacer. Yo hago, tú haces. Él hace, nosotros hacemos, ellos hacen. Oír. Yo oigo, tú oyes, él oye, nosotros oímos, ellos oyen. 3. Poner, to put. Yo pongo, tú pones, él pone, nosotros ponemos, ellos ponen. Okay? Salir. Yo salgo, tú sales, él sale, nosotros salimos, ellos salen. And then traer, yo traigo, tú traes, él trae, nosotros traemos, ellos traen. And finally, ver. Yo veo, tú ves, él ve, nosotros vemos, ellos ven. So, hacer, for example, yo hago, I do. Tú haces, you do. Él hace, he does. Nosotros hacemos, we do. Ellos hacen, they do. Remember, guys, that hacer can also be translated as to make. So when I say yo hago, that could come across as either I make or I do. For example, yo hago la tarea, I do the homework. But if I would say yo hago un pastel, that would mean I make a cake. So again, it just depends on the context of how you're using it, okay? Yo oigo, I hear. Tú oyes, you hear. Él oye, he hears. Nosotros oímos, we hear. Ellos oyen, they hear. Yo pongo, I put. Tú pones, you put. Él pone, he puts. Nosotros ponemos, we put. Ellos ponen, they put. Salir, yo salgo. I leave or I go out. Tú sales, you leave, you go out. Él sale, he leaves, he goes out. Nosotros salimos, we leave, we go out. Ellos salen, they leave, they go out. Traer, yo traigo, I bring. Tú traes, he brings. Él trae. Did I already say él trae? I'm sorry. Yo traigo, I bring. Tú traes, you bring. Él trae, he brings. Nosotros traemos, we bring. And ellos traen, they bring. All right. And finally, ver. Yo voy, I see. Tú ves, he sees. Él ve. No, I have just messed that up altogether. It is not tú ves means he sees. Forgive me, forgive me. Yo veo, I see. Tú ves, you see. Él ve, he sees. Nosotros vemos, we see. And ellos ven, they see. I got so much going on in my mind right here, I keep confusing all of the forms. Please forgive me. All right. So again, guys, we have those forms of the verbs right there. And you want to also make sure that you look on page 140 because some of these verbs can have kind of like a secondary meaning to them as well. We know that hacer means to do or to make. Well, if you look on page 140, you can see that there is a, for example, expression that says hacer una pregunta, literally to make a question. Well, we would translate that in English as to ask a question, right? So keep that in mind. Also, salir, it means to go out. For example, yo salgo de la clase, I leave class. But it also can mean, for example, yo salgo con mis amigos, I go out with my friends. In the sense of to go out, it could even mean like to go out on a date with somebody. So keep that in mind as well. Okay? And then the verb poner, it normally means to put, to place. Yo pongo mi libro sobre la mesa. I put my book on the table. Well, also poner can come across as like to turn on, some kind of apparatus. Yo pongo el radio. Or that I turn on the radio. So keep in mind that some of these verbs can have some slight meaning changes, not too bad, but just keep that in mind, okay? Again, I'm not going to write up on the board back here all of those forms on page 139. We've gone over them right now. You've heard how they are pronounced. So again, just make sure that you start committing those to memory. All right? See you later, alligator.